Hello, this is Stuart from Burningsuit with a short video today on DAX selected values function and how you can use it to create dynamic text and titles on charts and graphs on Power BI. This is taken from our DAX Advanced course, so it gives you a flavour of what our courses are like. We know how slicers work. This is all pretty, simple stuff for us now. We know this. We know that we click on champagne. This visual is filtered down. But in actuality, it's not that visual that's being filtered down by this filter. If we, strictly speaking, look at this and how this works, what is happening behind the scenes? So what is happening behind the scenes? We need to look at our data model to find out. Let me make that a little bit bigger. There we go. We are filtering the wines table. What does the wine table look like? Well, we know what the wines table looks like. It looks like this. And we are selecting a wine type. Now, this isn't happening anywhere we can see. This is happening behind the scene, or in memory, so to speak. So we selected, I don't know, Chardonnay. And this in table, in memory rather, the wines table is reduced down to one row. The row that matches, in this case, Chardonnay. And then because that wines table is filtered, it's a dimension table on our star, because the wines are filtered and because we have a relationship across to the wine sales, so this filters here, this affects here. And this is all down to this. If this relationship did not exist, if this relationship was different from what it is, if it did not exist, then it would not work the same way. But we know it works that way. We know that's what it's doing. What is a very common request now is that we want to give our users some context. Let me just close this one off so we don't. Here we go. Gives our users some context. Maybe this filter could be on a different page, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But maybe we want to have some context above here to say what we're filtering by. And if what we're filtering by, we want to be able to read the result of the slicer. We want to be able to read the wines table when it is filtered down to one element. And there's a wonderful piece of DAX called selected value. Selected value works when a table is reduced to one row, and it will then return an individual column from that table. I tend to think of selected values a little bit like a absolute value in Excel, $A, $40 or whatever. We are locking the row with the slicer, and then we're locking the column, or we're selecting the column with selected values. So let's see how we do this. Let's go get on my wines. Let's have a new measure. I tend to, and again, this is me, you may want to do differently. I tend to start my measure names with an underscore, just so they bubble up to the top of the table. Selected wine. And what that will equal is, if I type in selected, I get my selected options, and you'll see I've got selected value. There it is. And selected value returns the value when there's only one value in the specified column, otherwise returns the alternate result. So basically it's going to do what I've said it's going to do. So we look at selected value, and what it will return from the wines table. From the wines table, I want to return the wine name. So wines, wine. I mean, we've got two wines there, but the table name is lowercase, the column name is uppercase. I want to return the wine name, in other words, this Chardonnay. But equally, I've got to cope with the fact that that table may not be selected down to one value. And if it's selected down to multiple values, then this is where the comma operator, the alternate result, kicks in. And that alternate result, we're just going to send a piece of text back. Piece of text that says many. There's my measure. There we go. There's my measure with my selected value in it. Tick that. We get a measure. Pop it on the canvas. Again, there's multiple ways of putting it on the canvas. What I'll do initially is a simple way. I'll use a card. Cards are great for single values. Cards are great for one item. We've been discussing these earlier about what we can do with cards. So I'll pop a card on there, and onto the card I will put my selected wines. Oh, shining blank, yep. And right enough, that's what I got selected there. Note as I move around, so it does the decent thing for me. Note, well, no one likes Lambrusco, we know that. Note that if I've got more than one selected, control and click, I get the other option, the alternate option. Equally, that's the same if I've got none of them selected. So it's doing the whole list. So, you know, we're beginning with the measure there. We're beginning with this way of doing things. We can edit this measure, my selected wines, because we can make this a little bit more useful. We can drop that down so I've got a bit more room. And what I want to do is initially start off with a piece of text. So and this we operate in exactly the same way as we would in Excel. We just glom it together with an ampersand. Common way of doing things. Note I've put the space after the word is, so I get wine selected is space and then wine value. I can keep on with this in a number of ways. If I shift and enter, it will throw me a new line which is tidy, and we'll concatenate that onto something else. So then the wine selected is space and the supplier is. So a piece of text in there, concatenate that on. And then what I'm going to do is another selected value. There it is. What I'm going to do this time is, rather than take the wine's wine, as you probably guess, I'm going to take the wine's supplier. Yep. So this is going to go to the supplier column, and when it's selected down to one item, it's going to pull the supplier name out of that column. Finish it off, tidy it up, and something. There we go. So we turn that and tidy that up from that point of view. There we go. The wine selected is many, supplier is several and many. We go an individual one. Now again, we can finesse this a little way, and again we're going to use things now which aren't strictly all DAX, but that's good. You know, with DAX, as I say, I'm keen to say that DAX is one of the three legs of the stools of Power BI. It's not the only bits and pieces, and a lot of it is how you work with it. Because of course, one of the things that our users can do here is select multiples, and it all gets a bit silly. They start selecting multiples because although it works, we get the many, and maybe we don't want them to select multiples. They snuck this little change in about 6 months ago. One of the nicest little things you can do to a slicer, I've noticed, is on the slicer options, on the selection controls, you can turn on single select. It changes those slicer options from squares to radio buttons. The neat thing with a radio button is you can only have one radio button selected at a time. You can never select, you cannot control and click. I'm trying control click, you can't see it, but I am. And equally, one of these will always be selected. Now what we would often do is we would turn off the title here, and equally control and click. We could then group this element together So we can then move this element as one and mainly just maintain it as one item, and it all works in that way as though we have a title associated with this. But you've got some nice things now. We ungroup that so we don't need that one grouped anymore. We have the title here. And again on the visual, if we look on the paint roller at the title area, you will see in the title area we've got total sales by region. But then again, we've got that data there. We've got region and total sales, so we're telling us what we already know. We could change that to a piece of text, but of course it's not going to be dynamic. But we've got the f of x, and this is coming out on more and more fields in visuals. They've started it fairly gently with some conditional formatting, etc., but it's coming out on many more of them. Each time there's an update, you'll find new ones come in, which is nice to have. So if I click on the f of x, people think it's conditional formatting, but it's not necessarily conditional formatting. And I'm going to use based on field and then pull my measure out, selected wine. So now when I OK that, I get the title above tidally there. I can again finesse this a little bit more, tweak it around a bit, make it a bit obvious, this sort of stuff, and maybe make it a bit more obvious still. There we go. But now I don't need my card now. I can remove my card quite happily. Now the title's tight in on my visual, and there we go. Oops, no one likes Lambrusco yet. There we go. Malbec, Merlot, Peas Porter. This slicer now doesn't have to be on this page. So one of the things we can do, one of the nice things they do, we had cut and paste a little while back. We can now select the slicer, Control C to copy it. New page, Control V to paste it on. When you paste on a slicer like this, it'll say, hey, we can keep this in sync. Do you want to sync it? The simple answer is say yes, sync it. Now, if I go back to page 4, I can remove my slicer from here. And on page 5, now let's see if that's done that, or do I need to sync slicers? No, I need to sync slicers, that's okay. So on this slicer, there's a view, sync slices view, there it is. I want this slicer to affect page 4 as be visual on page 5. Do you see the method there? So now if I go champagne, that's now affecting page 4. There we go. So now the user has the context they need. The wine selected champagne supply with lace plates, but the slicer isn't on that page. So we've got other things we can do. So you can have, and people, it's a very common thing to do. People have a page of slicers, and then your other pages, all using sync slicers, operate on in this manner in this instance. So selected values can be quite handy to sort of start you leading off into that method. So that's some details on how you can use selected values to create text and titles on your Power BI reports. There's a lot more you can do with selected values, and we'll look at that in another video. If you like this video, be sure to click the like button and subscribe to us. If you've got comments and questions, use the comments area down below. You can visit us on the web at burningsuit.co.uk, and be sure to watch soon for some more videos. Thank you.